What's up, RotoGrinders? NFL Pick 6 Show, Conference Championship Week, sponsored by Thrive. We'll tell you about them. We'll talk about them later on in the show. Very last time for the season. We did it. We made it. Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis. John Daigle, 4 for 4, Bet Spurts. Rich, we did it. We're here. We're talking. We talked about going all the way as far. We didn't talk about this pre-show. I assume we're not doing just like the showdown slate conversation. Maybe we are. I'm not sure, but either way, I'm excited. How about you? How you feeling?
Doing good. Yeah. Listen, we've down to 3 football games left, 2 this weekend. We get a week off next week, and we're gonna all see each other in person in 2 weeks. So I'm looking forward to it.
It's gonna be good times for sure. John, I presume you'll be partaking, hanging out in the Super Bowl in Nashville with the RotoGrinders people.
Of course. To those kind of events, I usually get there a night early too, so I may shuffle around. I may holler at Dan, see what he's up to. But I'll absolutely be there all weekend long with everyone. I'm
sneaking in a day or two early too, I believe. That's my plan.
Oh, yeah. Holler at you.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe I lived in Nashville for a couple of years. And I didn't get to fully take part in the Nashville experience. And, the live music is just awesome, just jumping from club to club and no cover. I know it's a little bit crowded there sometimes too, but do enjoy Broadway. So I miss it. I want to partake. I don't know if that's your jam. Who doesn't like music? I assume you like music, yes?
I don't do shoulder to shoulder, but walking around with open windows and an acoustic scene, sure, because that's all Broadway is for the most part, unless you get jammed into one of those spots that are far too busy and you're not going to catch me dead in anyways.
Yeah, I don't think I want to do that either. Rich, how about yourself? You have the bold stance, the hot take. Are you pro music or are you anti music?
I am pro music and pro live music as well.
All right, we'll have to meet up, hang out. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to the Super Bowl. It should be a fun Super Bowl. We're gonna be talking the 2 games. Still big contests out there. DK's got $1 million contest. If that's for you, I tend to not play in the Millionaire Maker because I don't like top-heavy contests. But if that's for you, by all means, have at it. Be as ambitious as you want to be because if you're going to bink it, what is it? How many? I don't know. How many people are actually? How many entries? I wonder if we're going to get a solo winner because you got to get goofy, and that's what we're here for, right? We're going to be talking about all the plays. I'm curious how goofy we're going to get, but 2-gamer, Rich. I guess, clearly we're starting with the very first game, which is San Francisco, Philadelphia. Some injuries that are lurking, most specifically the Mahomes one. We'll talk about that one later. Cincinnati, KC. Anything that's worth noting as far as last week? Any takeaways or just want to kind of it'll come through organically during the analysis here for the Sunday games? Something we should mention as far as the retroactive? Do we want to get our one more shot in at Zeke Elliott or that's been expired? we hit the over.
That play is not Zeke's fault, man. Stop. And it was, I think we did get to see, I think, what were the 4 best teams relatively all season, though, end up making it to this weekend. And we don't always get that. So while the games were a little bit probably better and hotter wildcard weekend than they were this past weekend, I think the 4 teams we have left are the teams that, objectively we would say these have been the 4 best teams all year.
From a watchability perspective, we went 0 for 4 last week. All 4 games stunk. 0 for 4. You don't see that very often, right? I
don't think they stunk. They weren't they weren't relatively close, and the one close game we got was pretty sloppy.
Yeah, if you sim it 1,000 times, I feel like that's the bottom 4 percentile outcome from a watchability perspective. I don't know. John, jump in here. Right? Anything last week that's worth noting, or shall we just kind of power through and talk about 2 games that we're staring at this Sunday?
Not really. I think we're looking at a similar slate and that we can eliminate some running backs here as we move along. And last week, if you pretty much just eliminated Barkley from your pool, McCaffrey scored a touchdown, but otherwise, even he really didn't get there. We're kind of looking at the same situation here as well. Also for the Cowboys, I just don't know why a Hail Mary isn't in their bag. Why did they spend any amount of reps practicing these plays the last 2 years as opposed to just throwing a Hail Mary? What's wrong with a good old 50-50 catch downfield?
Who's throwing that thing 75 yards?
Yeah. They're going to throw a Hail Mary to the 20.
Who's not evaporating Cavante Turpin at 5'3" whenever he's trying to get open on the flat route 75 yards out?
Hey, listen, they were drawn largely into the 0.000, 1% chance of trying to pull some magic out of it. They tried to put an extra skill player on the field. Didn't work.
Dalton Schultz forgot how to play football for a drive. Yeah.
Yeah, he sabotaged him out of probably 30 yards and your Hail Mary shot.
Very clearly, nobody in Dallas is aware of the annexation of Puerto Rico play.
No, they didn't know, Dean.
No. Nobody's watched Little Giants in that Dallas coaching room, apparently. Ed O'Neill, though, is not coaching on the other side, so he would not fall for any sort of nonsense or tomfoolery. Okay, very first game, and I think Vegas it's just interesting. I'm not sure if you guys have been following the lines. San Fran, Philadelphia, 46.5 is the total in that game. The Eagles at one point, I think, were -1, which I thought was peculiar. You guys tell me. Now it's settled in. Looks like they're -2.5 versus San Fran. I thought the Eagles never should have been -1. Home field theoretically is worth 3 points. And I think at worst, they're even to San Fran. Again, I'm just the guy watching the games on my couch, and you're better at X's and O's than me, both of you guys. What do you think of that line, Rich? I thought that was a little odd that the Eagles were ever as low as just a 1 point favorite.
I haven't seen it. It opened at 2.5. That's kind of where it is everywhere right now. So I don't know, where that was. The Bengals line has had a lot of oscillation based on news and people, getting ahead of the curve. We had someone hammer the Chiefs yesterday, and it turns out they had information that Mahomes is going to practice today. So they jumped ahead because it swung back a little bit. But I haven't seen the 49ers line really move at all.
When it first broke, I was just kind of watching one of the sites, unless I'm just making this up. I was talking about it to a friend of mine who is in a legalized betting state, and I think it was down to 1 or 1.5, and it quickly changed. But yeah, what do you think where the line is right now? You think I assume you think it's basically correct because at this point it's going to settle, and that's what it should be, right? 2.5 Philadelphia. That makes sense, I think.
Yeah, I think it's probably a full point too late. I think it should be 3.5, or you just do the 3. But both of these games are going to be tight. This one's probably going to be the lower scoring. Obviously, it's implied that it's going to be low scoring, but both of these teams have faced a very small sample of good defenses. And when they have faced good defenses, their offensive numbers have pretty much dropped. Not completely to bottom of the league stuff, but very much off of their pace versus other teams in the league. We saw the 49ers face their first legitimate test with Brock Purdy last week, and they only averaged 4.9 yards per play. By far their fewest in a game Purdy started. It was the lowest of all teams that won last weekend. They had the lowest third down conversion rate of any team that won last week and the lowest red zone conversion rate. So I expect that the 49ers will be in a similar slugfest like they were with Dallas a week ago, and potentially even a better defense the Eagles have than the Cowboys.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think Philadelphia is the bet here, but not that this is a bet show, obviously. But I do like the Philadelphia side, even laying the 2.5.
And the Eagles have literally been the best football team wire to wire of the 2022-2023 NFL season, and it feels like they were so good for so long that they got boring to everybody.
Well, there was a point where we thought there's a chance they might run the table. Weren't they 12-0 or 13-0 at one point? I think that's how they started the season. They won the first. They ran out the first maybe 11 or 12. I can't remember who the first team that was that got them. But
they lost to the Commanders the first time.
Oof. In Washington?
No, right? It was in Philly.
No, it was that game where they ran 13 plays through 3 quarters because the Commanders just hammered Brian Robinson into the ground, into dust.
Yeah, they ran 100. They ran the time possession was crazy that game. That was the Goddard injury fumble play as well. That was a huge swinging point of that game. But they got. Listen, sometimes you lose. You look at all these teams. You look at down the NFL resume this year. Because I've had some pushback and say, well, we can't take the Eagles serious. They haven't played anybody. Nobody's played anybody this year. There was 5 good teams in the NFL this year. Nobody played a hard schedule in the NFL this year.
Just look at the quarterbacks the Bengals faced this year, and yet here they are. You could argue they're the best team right now, the hottest team right now, at least.
Does that matter? Momentum, is that real or is that fabricated? Like you said, they're hot and and they have the experience from last year. People will tell stories. And
confidence is definitely real. It's immeasurable, but just any walk of life. If anyone's played any type of sport on even an amateur level, even hell, man, cards or anything, confidence is real.
We also have, I didn't realize last week, I probably would have bet it differently, but we also have the Bengals versus the NFL, since they are very clearly aware or they think the NFL screwed them over with the home field advantage. We have the Joe Mixon coin toss touchdown celebration a couple weeks ago. We have Joe Burrow, before he's even asked, show up to the podium, and his first sentence is, "Go get your refunds," for the neutral site game. Zach Taylor's clearly molded a motivational scheme for the Bengals as well.
That Bengals offensive line also heard people talking about how they were like children, like trying to block grown men.
We talked about it last week. I mean, the structure of the Bengals offense was going to make it still like they were going to be able to avoid that. What was surprising was how effectively they ran the ball in that game, which, we'll talk about that when we get to there. But we talk about the Bengals, they weren't just going to give up a bunch of sacks because Burrow was getting rid of the football way too damn fast. And that wasn't going to, that was just, it's like the same thing with Brady, right? Like Brady, the Bucs had a terrible offensive line. Well, you still ain't going to sack him.
He's not going to let you hit him, Brady. He's untouchable.
And when he did hold on to the ball, he was still awesome. Like there was no weather excuses for the Bengals, whereas that's what the Bills had.
Does the snow, or do you think the snow helped the line just a tick?
You could have.
Yeah.
It could have negated the pass rush and helped out. Yeah, the O-line a little bit there.
All right, let's jump back to San Fran, Philadelphia again. 46.5 as far as the total. Philadelphia, a slight favorite. John, I'll let you open this up. And by all means, I didn't ask you if you have any thoughts as far as the line. Feel free to fire them out there. There's certainly a Venn diagram of people that are listening that are playing DFS and also sports wagering. Plenty of states out there with it regulated at this point. But Eagles, San Fran, dealer's choice. Where do you want to start?
We'll start with the Eagles because, to Rich's point, like for books to get action, I think you have to keep it around the 3. If you put it on the 3, that's just fair, and everyone knows it. But for the Eagles to be favored by less than 3 at 2.5 right now, if the Eagles were to jump over that and be favored by 3 in the hook, that would clearly get the most action. So I believe we're just going to settle here at 2.5 unless some very big bets come and move it to 3.5. And honestly, the narrative these past few games have been Jalen Hurts not throwing deep, being inaccurate throwing deep, but his 3 quickest times we know from snap to throw this year occurred in all 3 games against the Giants. I'm assuming that was just to make life easier and get rid of the ball quickly, knowing Wink Martindale was going to send the house at him at will every single snap. But I also consider that good preparation for this game, just because I comp it personally to San Francisco's pass rush, to Dallas's pass rush. And as we saw against Dallas, all the Eagles did, well, they did a couple things, but really what they did was get rid of the ball quickly as well. A.J. Brown had a 32% target share in that game, but also had the lowest depth of target in any game all year, 4.8 yards downfield. As they, if you remember, just faked off handoffs with Miles Sanders to Micah Parsons' side every single time. And then if Parsons went with Sanders in a flat route, then Hurts would run it upfield. If not, then they would either throw to A.J. Brown or dump it off to Sanders, depending what Micah Parsons did. And that's how I consider this pass rush for San Francisco. Also, though, if we think they're just going to leave the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands, knowing they can't run it all, and I'm personally just eliminating Eagles running backs from my pool this week and making it that much easier, I think, for myself. But if we also are just going to assume Jalen Hurts has the ball in his hands, we also have this unknown ceiling for his rushing floor. And that's what gets me excited about playing Jalen Hurts this week, because this DeMeco Ryans defense hasn't really faced a mobile quarterback all year. Like Mariota had them for 6 carries, 50 yards, so high yards per carry. They played Justin Fields in that torrential downpour in week 1. But also remember, last year at least, DeMeco Ryans defense did allow over 100 yards to Justin Fields. They played Jalen Hurts, and he ran for 10 carries, 82 yards, and a touchdown. So I think there is an ambiguous upside here that people may not be chasing. They're probably going Mahomes or Burrow instead. That gets me really excited to start my lineups with Hurts.
Hey, John, when you say you're eliminating Eagles running backs, how many lineups are you making? Because like if you're making 3 lineups, sure. If you're making 150, that is some boldness. Like I don't think you're a 150 guy, right?
No. I'm a 3 max guy.
Okay.
But will I have Kenneth Gainwell for the receiving upside? Maybe in 1 of 3. I talk in single entries because that's what I play the most of, like the double spies and whatnot. Yeah, so I should probably actually expand that. But let's just say I would be underweight, very underweight Eagles running backs if I was a max 150 guy.
Yeah, because if you're running 150, like you talked about Barkley last week, I actually played a bunch of lineups, and I might have like maybe 5 or 10% Barkley, and you'd think that I had a big edge in the field, but I also had like 5 or 10% Mixon, so good job.
I picked the Eagles running back wrong. I did go Sanders. It was clearly Gainwell. As we saw in the 4-man we'll get to later, I thought Boston Scott was the way to get not an advantage, but to save salary in particular on FanDuel, but we'll talk about all that later.
Isn't there that nonsense stat that like Gainwell scored against the Giants like 9 games in a row or something silly like that?
It's fun. He's the only one that continued the trend. Everyone else kept getting away with it. Boston Scott kept it going.
He can't keep getting away with it. He did. McKinnon didn't. We'll talk about him soon enough. Rich, jump in here. Your thoughts as far as the Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the Eagles, they've been a team that's been game plan sensitive to the opponent basically the entire season. And you look at the 49ers, I mean, teams really they're an inherent pass funnel for 2 reasons. One, they've led a lot of games, and 2, they're really awesome against the run. And, opponents have thrown the ball 62% of the time on them. 74% of the yardage the 49ers allow is passing yardage. That's the second highest rate in the league. Only the Titans, are more. And when you look at the Eagles, they've played 6 games this season against teams that are top 10 in the NFL in success rate against the run. In those games, they've thrown the ball 59% of the time, 69% of the time in the first half of those games. Against everybody else, those rates are 54% and 60% for full game and in the first half. This is very similar to like when they played like the Titans or the Commanders, where they came out and threw the ball in 77% of the first half snaps in those games. The only difference is the 49ers are a lot better against the pass, even though it's where they're a little bit weaker than those teams that the Eagles have faced so far to this point in the season. So I look at it as the Eagles are probably going to be aggressive. They're not going to be able to establish like a traditional, run game with, a downhill run game like they were able to attack the Giants linebackers last week, right? You can put an extra body on Dexter Lawrence, force guys like Gerard Davis and goes to Jalen Smith to make plays. And that's where they really beat them up. The 49ers, they're a completely inverse team, right? Like their linebackers are really good. I think the Eagles are going to have a hard time just traditionally running the football here. It's going to have to use, Jalen Hurts' legs. And it's going to have to be a big A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith game. And the Eagles already throw the ball 70% of the time to their wide receivers, the highest rate in the league, 69.6% of the time. And that's the one area where the 49ers are vulnerable. They have another big game to CeeDee Lamb last week. They have been exposed by wide receiver ones kind of throughout the course of the season. They're 24th in the NFL in points allowed to those guys. The Eagles may not have a true wide receiver one. It may be like a 1A, 1B situation. And we can even debate who that is right now at this point. But 58% of the fantasy points the 49ers allow go to wide receivers. That's the highest rate in the NFL. It's going to have to be a big A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith kind of showing out here.
Well, the follow-up is which one? Which one do you prefer looking at the X's and O's? Anecdotally, by the way, if you watch A.J. Brown, it feels like, remember like old school, like when Julio Jones mattered? Like every time he gets up, it feels like he's getting hurt or he's hurting. And like, this guy's not going to make it through this game. That just feels like watching A.J. Brown. Like last game, every time he's on the ground. It's like he struggles to get back up. He almost always will, but I always get nervous when I roster him. But of course, he has those incredible ceiling games as well. Brown and Smith, pretty close, actually closer than probably you would guess when you start looking at the numbers. But they're also relatively similar as far as asking price now. $7K for Brown, 6.8 for Smith. Basically a coin toss on DK. Do you have a lean, Rich, as far as forgetting my ownership? We don't know what that's going to be at this point anyway. Brown versus Smith, who's got the better ceiling option?
For ceiling, I would still say it's Brown, and it'd be interesting because we were on Devontae Smith as the pivot last week, where Brown is going to check in and be more popular, and it turns out he was he's out targeted AJ Brown in 7 of the past 10 games. Just the men's ceiling is not quite as high where Brown's is, but I think it's going to flip. I think we're going to see Devontae Smith end up more popular than AJ Brown this week, so we'll see and monitor that. Obviously, I'll go with the lesser owned guy. I think it's a great bounce back spot for AJ Brown as well. We talked about the 49ers versus wide receiver ones. They're, bad against perimeter wide receivers. That's where Devontae Smith plays too. It's kind of a dealer's choice here. I do kind of slightly prefer Brown, but only because I think right now in my head, I think he'll be lower rostered, but we'll see how that comes to be to the end of the week.
We may get a little injury discount as well, which in a short slate, obviously more than willing to take a chance on a player with his ceiling.
Am I wrong for saying that, John, as far as AJ Brown? He just feels like a guy that like always...
Well, he was banged up last week. I mean, he played the fewest snaps he's played in a game. They talked about he had some kind of hip or hamstring. They were kind of like, they didn't really disclose what it was. But he played just 11 snaps in the second half of that game. And he only ran 5 pass routes in the second half of that game. He was clearly dealing with something.
Rich, on 150, do you include Quez Watkins? He's got to at least be he's got to be in the mix.
And Zach Pascal, he ran more pass routes than Watkins. He's a little bit better of a blocker, so they had him in, obviously, at the run-heavy script, especially in the second half of that game, where they were it was the token Eagles game, right, that we saw all year. They get out to a huge lead, and the Eagles offense has to do absolutely nothing in the second half. They threw 7 passes in the second half. That won't happen this week. I think this game will be a lot tighter. But yeah, I think you got to include Quez Watkins because he plays a little bit in the slot, and where the 49ers have been vulnerable around these downfield throws, right? Like the deep throws, 20 yards or further downfield. Quez Watkins has the highest rate of his targets come from on the Eagles roster. 49ers are 23rd in completion rate. They've allowed 6 touchdowns to wide receivers on those throws. That's 27th in the NFL. He would be kind of the one-off dart, I think, to throw here with the Eagles pass catchers.
Especially because Dallas Goedert, we're expecting to come in quite high roster given his cheap salary. And honestly, a tight end slate where yet again, you're really just asking if you can fade Travis Kelce or not and get away with anyone else.
We could not last week.
Yeah, we have
could not.
Yeah, he almost had
I played a lot of Goddard. It still wasn't enough.
Even Hurst was good, but not. You could run 2 tight ends. I don't think 2 tight ends won it.
Yeah,
it's only could have.
Yeah, Fanduel was obviously at that $8K salary for Kelce was a lot tougher, and I tried to make it work, but was severely underweight on him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I will get to him. I think a producer Steve was the only one in the 4-man to have Kelce. He had him at Mahomes, and he still won. I think he beat me by like a point. And I think I can't remember who I had. Doesn't matter, but
it's because like the first 3 games, Joe Burrow was in winning tournament lineups, but even then you had to be feeling, or I felt really good having 49ers Cowboys stacks going into that last game because really outside of Kelce, no one hit. Like you were comfortable with having anyone in that game, and then of course 49ers Cowboys flopped altogether. Yeah,
it is wild the early optimals, and again, grain of salt, right? But we have on DK. I ran 150, 69% Goddard, 5% Kelce, 1% Kittle. Just outrageous. Like it's not going to settle like that, obviously. No. But it tells you, if nothing else, tells you the cap is tight. And on FanDuel, 75% Goddard, 28% Hurst, 4% Noah Gray, 1% Kelce, 1% and 1%.
I mean, FanDuel's been on his salary for a long time. Like they have made it hard to play Kelce over there.
Yeah, and I've admittedly been one of those plebes to toy around with Noah Gray this week. We'll get there when we get there.
Yeah, I played him a little bit last week, and I think he had at least like a 30-yard catch. I don't know if he did anything else, but like
I bet his overs, and he got there on 1 catch. Felt lucky. I felt lucky enough just to cash those.
Yeah, it was the Chad Henne drive too, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. No, he caught it in the second half. I think he had his catch.
Okay, yeah, it was that 127-yard catch.
Yep. Yeah, we got there on one play.
That's all you need when you bet the
over. Wilson, when your receiving line is 15.5 yards.
Well, don't look down, Rich, but it's 12.5 this week. Just let
baby, fire it up.
I'm getting flashbacks to my T.Y. Hilton.
We go back.
Oh, Jesus, I don't want to talk about
it. T.Y. Hilton nearly got there. He did outscore Michael Gallup. That's the best part. we did call that part. He outscored Michael Gallup.
Anything else? I mean, yeah, Goddard's great. I think it's an interesting ownership conversation because, again, what we're seeing, he's almost definitely going to be the most popular tight end, just kind of the way lineup construction works. 4-1 on DK is that's a really good price. Yeah, and Kelce's 7-8, and we'll get to Kelce. But Kelce was on track last week to have the most catches all time in a playoff game. I think he had 10 in the first, 15, I think is number 1. I tweeted it out. I think it was a couple of running backs, Darren Sproles and somebody else. It's 15 catches.
Both those teams, the Jaguars and the 49ers, were just like willing to let both of those guys, CeeDee Lamb and Travis Kelce, just catch pass after pass. And it was like, all right, we know exactly what's coming here. Are we not going to like bracket him, do anything here?
Yeah, I mean, you might want to cover that guy. He's pretty good.
I mean, Travis Kelce, he had 17 targets in that game.
Outrageous.
He had 14 catches. The rest of the Chiefs had 13 catches. The Jaguars, remember, they drafted Devin Lloyd like for that reason, like pretty much just to stop Travis Kelce. And they benched him mid-year. They can't even get him on the field.
Interesting. We got to talk about the Niners. Brock Purdy, tough environment. This is probably the toughest environment he's ever going to be in, or in his short career, in Philadelphia for the championship game here. Should note, I guess, and who knows, but the CMC thing last week with his leg or his hamstring, and they're, again, they didn't like just hammer him. They were playing Mitchell a good bit down the stretch. It's Wednesday. We'll see. Stay tuned. I guess we'll have the conversation, Rich, assuming that CMC is a full go. but talk to me about the Niners and whatever your level of concern on Wednesday about CMC. I think it was his hamstring, right?
I think it was a calf injury, and that's something we've seen. With Elijah Mitchell active, he's the body blows guy, right? Like when they need to put this thing away, it's always been Elijah Mitchell. McCaffrey's now played 6 games with Elijah Mitchell, and he's rushed for more than 45 yards in one of them. And in that one game, he had a 68-yard run on its own. So he kind of got there on one kind of carry in that game. But we've seen, it has all been Elijah Mitchell, and the same to end games, because you see Elijah Mitchell, 11 of his 14 carries came in the fourth quarter again last week. In the 6 games he's played with Christian McCaffrey, he has just 17 of his 62 carries in the first half of those games. It's going to be, CMC early, and if the game's tight, we might never even see Mitchell, or if this injury, because remember Mitchell has a groin injury too. He's another one of those guys, like you talk about Julio, and he's always perpetually dealing with some kind of soft tissue injury. But it's also another run back spot for like McCaffrey to be in another bad environment running the football. You look at since week 11, when the Eagles acquired Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh, that aged beef, we called it. The Eagles have a 66% success rate against running back carries. That's 8th in the NFL. They've allowed a first down or touchdown on 16% of all running back carries. That's the lowest rate in the NFL over that span. And then prior to that, it was at 56% success rate. That was 28th in the NFL. A first down or touchdown, 26% of all carries. That was 29th in the NFL. Without any of Linval Joseph, the rookie Jordan Davis, or Ndamukong Suh on the field, they've allowed 5.5 yards per carry to running back, 60% success rate. With any of the three, just one of the three, it's 3.93 yards per carry, 66% success rate. They've been really good against the run. They've given up a lot of rushing production. They faced a slew of mobile quarterbacks that have boosted up the rushing yardage they've given up in totality, but they've been really excellent against running backs. It's going to have to be a game where CMC, I think, is involved in the pass game a lot, like how he was last week. He didn't have the yards last week, but 6 of 8 targets, led the team in targets. That's probably what we see in a similar run out, because the heat's coming again. We saw Brock Purdy last week face the team as number 1 in pressure rate, but Dallas, although they create a lot of pressures, are really bad at converting their pressures into sacks. They're first in the NFL in pressure rate, 15th in sack rate on pressures. Guess who is number 2 in pressure rate? The Eagles. And guess who's number 1 in the NFL in converting pressures into sacks? The Eagles. So this is going to be another game where Purdy is going to have just a lot of heat on him again. And that's kind of been his one bugaboo so far as a starter. It's everyone's starter. He's a rookie quarterback. You expect pressure bothers at the best of quarterbacks. But that's kind of been his splits. When he's kept clean, he's awesome. When he's kept clean against the Cowboys, he was incredible. He's 15 of 17 passing in that game. But when the Cowboys were able to get pressure on him, 3 yards per pass attempt, that's kind of where the world we live in again this week with the 49ers. It's going to be another game where Purdy might be fine and not turn the ball over, but it's probably a low ceiling for a lot of these 49ers players again.
Eagles also averaged the most sacks per game, 3.1, and a double-digit sack rate when they sent 4 pass rushers or less this year. And that's what Dallas did. They pressured Purdy, as you mentioned, on 50% of his dropbacks, the highest rate of the divisional round, and sending 4 rushers on all but only 7 defensive snaps in that game. That's all they blitzed at all. So it is a similar situation. And if we're looking at that and Purdy being under pressure, in my opinion, it takes away from Purdy's ceiling. The good thing is we at least know that this target tree is pretty whittled down. Like George Kittle, yes, as he's shown us, can definitely get there solely on touchdowns from Purdy. But with Deebo Samuel back in the mix now, even if you just look at only the playoffs, Samuel has 16 targets, leads the team in that span. Christian McCaffrey's next up with 10. And if we are, yes, I'm not wanting to play McCaffrey for his rushing production, but honestly, like looking at the big picture landscape of the slate, I look at everyone and ask, like, what running back produces this weekend? So it's almost like I want to find a way to pay up for McCaffrey's receptions, not even giving a damn like what he does on the ground.
Yeah, it's interesting where it feels like, that's why you were talking about before about Miles Sanders crossing him out. It's like, okay, cross out Miles Sanders. CMC, you got to
doesn't catch passes anyways. Yeah.
I mean, you look at CMC's games last week from a DraftKings. I mean, he the yardage wasn't there, efficiency was there, but he caught 6 passes and scored a touchdown. So I mean, you're getting those full PPR points, and he's got that touchdown equity always.
And 5 points for catches may be good on this running back slate, honestly. It's like last week, Samaj P. we talked about on DraftKings, and he got 11 points, which, considering the rest of the running backs, like that was the RB2 you needed to win tournaments. But like we talked about earlier, I played Boston Scott on Fanduel because it's a different conversation. We're trying to chase touchdowns there, so I wasn't playing P. Ryan there. But McCaffrey, just given the landscape, unless you're trying to squeeze in Kelsey, like maybe that's the player you play anyways and just hope for the receiving score.
I didn't hear a ton of optimism for San Fran from Rich, and that's kind of where I'm at too. And that's where, again, I
also think that most of the Eagles guys have lowered ceilings too. I mean, you have to temper, I think, expectations for both teams in this game based on their performances against, when they've had to punch up. I mean, the Eagles have only played 5 games against teams that are top 10 in EPA allowed per play. And in those games, their points per drive dropped to 1.93. They scored a touchdown on 23% of those possessions, and they've scored on 33% of those drives. Those are massive drops off of their games against opponents outside of those parameters. So, I mean, in general, I think this game is going to look a lot like the Dallas 49ers game a week ago. Just depends where the turnovers go, though. But yeah, I think you're probably the wide receivers here, and the Eagles have the highest ceilings. I think when you're looking at some like a unit group of like guys that can like really have like a big game, right? Because the 49ers have been giving up big games to wide receivers. Mm-hmm. But the rest of these guys, I think, if they hit for you, it's going to be they got you like what you needed, as opposed to like Debo going nuts or Kittle going nuts or Goddard going nuts or, Miles Sanders going nuts. Like I think most of the other guys are just getting you there if they do hit.
And that's why I am, we don't know on a Wednesday, as you said, Dean, but I am going to be looking at ownership the entire time because I would guess right now, Bengals Chiefs, especially the Bengals side, is much more attractive to a lot of people. And if that's the case, I do want to, though, be overweight on the Eagles offense, just because I think we're going to get, as we mentioned, a lot of volume from Jalen Hurts, and that's a chance I'm just willing to take.
I just think it's worth noting, like a 4-game slate, you don't have to be perfect at every spot. Just like P. Ryan wasn't amazing last week, but you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just got to be faster than like the slowest guy running away from the bear. That sort of concept. Like you don't have to make perfect lineups. It's we're all dealing with the same puzzle pieces, and it's very possible. Like the winning score this week is like 111 points. Like that's possible. Right. It could just be the way it is.
Especially if you think both games go under, which I think there's a real good chance of that.
That's what I was hearing from Rich. It sounded like Rich was, like, without saying it, implying he's a fan of the under. John, you like the under as well, 46.5 as far as San Fran Philly?
I prefer not that I think it's going to go over, but if I had to pick one, I would think the over has a better chance in this game than Bengals Chiefs, personally.
Rich, give me this. Give me the player you absolutely want to be overweight on, or if you want to say a stack, by all means, in San Fran, Philly.
Arthur Juan.
Yeah. Give me this. Give me the one that you're most willing to be under on. Like obviously you understand all the factors of ownership and salary. Who's the one that like you can be okay being underweight on as far as San Fran, Philadelphia?
I would say on the Eagles side, Goddard, and on the 49ers side, I mean, any of them.
Yeah.
I would say, probably, I guess, Debo by default, just he's going to be – Debo's going to be the only one that's really popular. Him and CMC, I'm sorry. They're going to be the two most popular guys because we've seen the Ayuk splits kind of come to light. Like, people aren't going to chase him against the Eagles. Kittle's kind of just in limbo, right? Like, he's priced in between Kelsey and Goddard.
Yeah. And is there, like, do you have, like, an Uber dart? Like, again, a 1 in 150?
I would say Quez. Quez would be the dude.
Yeah, okay. That's what I want. And the same questions for you, John. The dude, the player, the stack that you absolutely want to have that you're going to do your best to make sure you're overweight on in relevance to the field. San Fran, Philly.
It's definitely Jalen Hurts, and then I'll probably tinker with some Hurts wide receiver onslaughts.
And your most comfortable fade?
It's Dallas Goedert. My lineups do not represent Dallas Goedert well right now, at least on Wednesday.
All right. So I'm hearing stack Hurts with Brown. That's what I'm hearing. And what is your like goofy, ambitious fade? We didn't really talk about like the Jennings or the Ray McLeods of the world. Again, if you're running 150, I suppose they're in your pool. You don't feel confident about them. Their floor is 0. Do you have you see Quez Watkins and raise him with somebody?
I don't think I could beat Quez Watkins, who I am open to for all the reasons.
Juwan Jennings.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could do Jennings. I think I'm more open to 2 tight end builds and like going Kittle over Debo, since they're the same conversation, at least on DraftKings. Like, at least for Christian McCaffrey, we have the conversation about salary and you have to sacrifice a player. Like, you can't, you have to really try to squeeze it if you go like Jalen Hurts doubles with Christian McCaffrey, even with Goddard. But Debo is just so cheap on DraftKings, they don't move his salary. So even having a 25% target share in his starts with Brock Purdy, it doesn't even matter. People are just going to naturally play him.
Mm-hmm. In lineup construction-wise, John, I feel like I'm hearing you say like you're more likely to play 2 tight ends, 4 receivers, as opposed to 3 running backs. Is that correct on a Wednesday afternoon?
Yeah, 2 tight ends or 4 wide receivers is where I'm leaning at right now. 2 tight end, maybe if you think it's an ugly slate, and we'll get here. Like, I just keep looking at Hayden Hurst's receptions, and I'm like, sure, like 4 catches, that's probably good in this ugly ass slate. So yeah, we're just gonna play around a little bit.
All right, producer Steve, throw up the Thrive props. We'll talk about the second game in just a second. We do want to thank Thrive for sponsoring this podcast throughout the entire season. Do appreciate that. If you guys are not aware of Thrive, well, we'll talk about them in just a second. But we do have the props. We'll let you guys know. We'll give you a sweet deposit bonus as well. But by the way, I don't know if you guys know this. I know you watch the screen live, but I do in the email. I do take pictures of the actual props as well. I feel like you guys never acknowledged that or even known. I didn't like mention it to you. Yeah. Okay. So feel like
I appreciate your effort there, Dean.
Yes, we do like you. I think we're both a do it live kind of person.
John, I will give you the honors.
It's like unwrapping, it's unwrapping the or reaching into the box of chocolates, man. We don't know what we're really getting here.
Fair enough. John, go first. Fire away as far as some overs and some unders. Be as bold, be as ambitious as you want to be for Thrive.
Sure. Let's go back up to Jalen Hurts and let's go over. We don't even get juice for the over. Hold on. Let's not do over. That's not much. Let's go back down to Patrick Mahomes, because I think I saw him tagged with 315.5 total yards, and we get juice on less. We're definitely doing that. His legs haven't really been a factor in these games anyways, but he also has yet to eclipse, or his last 3 contests anyways, against the Bengals, didn't eclipse 275 passing yards in any of those games. So yeah, we'll definitely take some juice here on Patrick Mahomes, who could be hobbled. And then, gosh, Juju, that Mahomes injury killed me last week. He
wasn't getting there anyways.
He probably wasn't. That's probably an excuse I make, honestly. At least the opening drive. The opening drive was hot, though. We got a couple.
We're going to talk about those jamokes, man. These Kansas City wide
receivers. We're getting them all back this week too. We get to play them all. The world is your oyster. And then they make them tough this week. They're not even giving you good. Under 56.5 for Miles Sanders. We get, is that 50-point juice on Miles Sanders? Yes, under.
That's receiving too, just so you know. It's rushing and receiving.
That's okay.
Receiving is basically 0.
He's not going to catch any passes.
When's the last game he had 2 catches? Yeah.
Why don't they throw the ball to him? It's kind of weird, but all right.
To answer that question, week 13 was the last time he had 2 receptions.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Rich, what do you have as far as the props? What's popping out here? I see your boy Arthur Juan, 70.5, and it's a true like 50-50, 100 points over, 100 points under.
Ooh, all right.
70.5 yards.
Yeah, fire that one up. I like the under on the Brandon Ayuk line as well. With Deebo Samuel on the field and Brock Purdy, he's just been targeted on 15% of his routes. And the Eagles are awesome on the outside against outside wide receivers. So I like that one. I kind of like the McCaffrey under rushing yards, because it's no receiving yards are factored in. Like, he's only rushed for more than 45 yards in one game that Elijah Mitchell's played. Plus, you have the calf injury out. Like, what if there's an aggravation? I feel like Debo, you're giving away 20 points, but I mean, the over 3.5 catches feel like too clean there to just give those away. We need some of the free ones, right?
Yeah, it feels pretty good. As far as I'm curious what his projections are projected for, but I'm pulling it up right now.
That's all about in the game we talked about. Bengals Chiefs we haven't talked about, but what do we get? Burrow, if we can get 3 passing tuds, he's we're getting juice there. Mixon 52.5 rushing yards looks pretty solid. A lot of these look pretty good in that game.
You can get a pick as well. You can get 2 touchdowns and a pick for Burrow. You're there.
Yeah, it's true. An interception gets you there too. I definitely think he's throwing multiple tuds in this game. Yeah, so I don't mind that one as well. But yeah, those all look good. Those all look good in that one. I also agree with Daigle's Mahomes take.
Yeah, I just pulled it up. His passing yard projection, for what it's worth, is right under 300. I saw 299 in the blitz for courtesy of Cardi. I say courtesy, like I didn't ask for permission, but I pulled it up. I assume he wouldn't be angry if I threw it out there. If you guys are not aware of Thrive, we've been talking about it all season long. Where have you been? Joining the fantasy prop action this NFL season. Thrive Fantasy, easy to play. As you see, you just kind of pick 10 of these 20. And you pick your 10 favorite props based upon points. You click the most points, you win yourself a big chunk of the prize pool. The ones that are more likely to happen, you get less points for. Less likely to happen, you get more points for. You're rewarded for your ambition if it hits. We have a nice bonus code for you all as well. Grinders, that's GRINDERS. When you sign up for a deposit bonus up to $250 as well as free tickets. Terms and conditions apply. Check out the RotoGrinders review page for Thrive Fantasy in the description for more. I have it written here as far as the tickets, or at least I did. I think you get more tickets. I know you get more tickets. Here it is. Yeah, 2 free $20 contest tickets if you deposit between $100 and $499. You deposit $500 or more, 6 free individual $20 contest tickets to play for there on Thrive. Okay, 1 game down, 1 game to go. We'll talk about our movie afterwards. Joe Burrow versus Mahomes, 47.5 is the total. Kansas City. This is the one, right? They are now, a 1-point dog at home. They opened as, didn't they open as like a 2-point favorite, I want to say, or 1.5-point favorite at home? Of course, some hesitancy, some murkiness as far as the health of Mahomes. But, yeah, he was at least seen today. He practiced, and he was seen today walking without a walk away from the podium. So that's at least some optimism, I suppose. They're still 1-point dogs at home versus Cincinnati. I'll throw it to you, Rich. Like how much, and again, Wednesday, more information will be had going forward. But what we have right now, how concerned are you with Mahomes and his injury? And, how are you going to adjust, if you are, as far as making lineups?
Not a whole time. And we saw Mahomes last week, even in the second half of that game. He led all quarterbacks in the divisional round in second half passer rating and EPA per play. Pretty good on one leg, Patrick Mahomes still. So, I mean, you do take away a component where, like you saw, like on the first drive of that game, his plays out of structure are just so amazing. But he could still play some traditional quarterback too. He's pretty good. So I do think that more or less, like he's still gonna be able to throw the ball effectively in this game. Now, in these matchups with the Bengals, though, like they've done a really good job at already eliminating his ceiling. In these 3 matchups with these teams, he's been right at 20 points, 20.9, 20.9, 19.8 fantasy points. When these teams played earlier in the season, he completed just 59% of his passes, and the Bengals are number 1 in the NFL in completion rate allowed to quarterbacks. Daigle talked about some of the quarterbacks they faced, and they didn't face a really daunting rogues gallery, but they did limit guys like Mahomes, and they did face him. There's another good quarterback they faced too, Josh Allen last week, and way below his seasonal output as well. It was just Mahomes had 1 game where he completed fewer rate of his passes than this game, and he had just 1 game where he threw for lower passing yards than this game against the Bengals. Lou Anarumo, the dude he's got the touch, man. And you look at these games against the Chiefs, and it's just what he's done against everybody since he's been with the Bengals. In the second half of these games, the Chiefs just can't score points. And that's kind of what has been Lou Anarumo's like kind of calling card, is that the Bengals don't give up any production in the second half of games. And it happened again to the Bills last week. The Chiefs have led all of these games. They led 2 of the 3 in the first half. They haven't trailed going into the fourth quarter of any of these 3 games, even though everyone keeps citing the 3, Burrow's 3-0. These games have been good games. They've been tight, and the Chiefs have largely led or been leading in these games going into the fourth quarter. But yeah, they've already limited the ceiling of Mahomes, so they've kind of had his number. When you look at the Chiefs in general, there's still something about the Chiefs that's kind of uninspiring versus other Chiefs teams, right? And we saw a little bit of that again last week. Like, these wide receivers aren't any good. And it's kind of a problem. It really is. It really is more of a, like, they've gotten this far, so it's not like a huge problem, but like, they don't have any good wide receivers. Like, their best wide receiver is a guy they manufacture touches for. So do you think Lou Anarumo is going to let Travis Kelce get 17 targets in this game? Hell no. There is no way. Some of these vagabond wide receivers are going to have to step up in this game. There's no way they're letting Travis Kelce catch 14 passes.
And hearing you say, oh, go ahead.
Well, and I think everyone naturally goes to Kadarius Toney because they keep trying to play him. They keep trying to jam him in. But like even the Chiefs, like Rich was saying, don't want to play him. They are continuing to just use him as their fifth wide receiver off the bench. Since McCole Hardman was injured, McCole Hardman, who's practicing on Wednesday, may come back this week. Toney still hasn't run a route on over 33% of dropbacks in any game. They just don't want to use him. Unless they just dump it off underneath, which is what basically Mahomes did injured last week in the second half to him. And now if we get McCole Hardman back, it looks like we may get Clyde Edwards-Helaire back. There's a chance Jody Fortson also returns and ruins our $2,500 Noah Gray this week. Like, these guys don't inspire you, I understand, from like an on-field perspective, but for fantasy, like, we're kind of just now, if all these guys are only getting their own touchdowns anyway, especially Kadarius Toney, like what happens then with the guys who were previously getting their only on touchdowns comes back and vultures the usage. Best case scenario now, everyone's in a part-time role. It's a really weird situation to parse through for the Chiefs.
Well, MVS had like one touchdown last week, but I think it was his only catch. You mentioned Toney. I think he had 12 routes is the word I heard, but when he's on the field, like cover him because he's getting the ball.
Yeah. Well, you can't cover him because he's getting the ball behind the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
and his usage, remember, like he only got that usage because that was McCole Hardman's usage. So what happens now if Hardman's returns?
Did we see a change in Mahomes' ADOT, after the leg thing? I feel like watching the game, he was throwing a little bit shorter, but maybe I'm just wrong. Just kind of.
Well, it's because he's throwing the ball 17 times as tight end.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the same thing. We've done this shit all year with Justin Herbert, right? Like, where people keep talking about like Joe Lombardi is the only reason Justin Herbert has a low ADOT, even though he's throwing the ball 300 times to, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen and Josh Palmer. Like, ADOT is not a quarterback stat. It's a receiver stat. So if you're going to be throwing the ball 17 times to your tight end, your ADOT's not going to look so great, right? Like that's kind of where we are with that. But I will say this: there's a very strong chance one of these Chiefs wide receivers is the guy you need, and I can't tell you by hook or crook who to play. I don't know. I don't know. How do you choose one of these guys? The Chiefs have targeted their wide receivers just 48% of the time. Only the Ravens have targeted their wide receivers at a lower rate. They haven't had a 100-yard wide receiver since week 7. The entire unit has 7 receiving touchdowns over their past 11 games.
Jeez.
The last time these teams played, they combined for just 6 catches, the wide receivers. I don't know what to tell you. Juju Smith-Schuster is going to be out there the most, right? Like if you just want to take the guy who's on the field the most, sure. Maybe that's the path of least resistance. But he's gone over 38 yards in 2 of his past 9 games. He has a touchdown in 1 of his past 10 games. MVS is getting targeted on 14% of his routes. Justin Watson, I don't even know what they're doing with Justin Watson. He plays a good amount, but I can't tell you. I've seen him catch like 2 passes this year. He's only getting targeted on 11% of his routes. There's a good chance you luck box into one of these Chiefs guys being the skeleton key to the slate. I don't know who it is. I don't know what to tell you.
It would matter on a short slate too, but like MVS has basically just been Michael Gallup. Like he got there with a touchdown last week, but he's been under 30 yards in 6 consecutive games. His prop right now at books is 28.5. Like even Vegas just thinks, like, he's not going to do anything. Who cares?
To be fair, Mahomes warned us. He told us at the beginning of the year. He's like, it's going to be different every single week.
Like it was like Juju was like the guy. And then like when he got his concussion, he just never regained like that role. We talked about it a little bit last week, and same thing happened last week. Because of what the Chiefs are doing offensively, he's not even playing in the slot anymore either. I mean, you look at since the week 8 bye, he's played 62% of his snaps out wide. And Juju, historically, when you look at his splits, and they're again true this year, he's just a different player inside versus outside in terms of yards per route run, target rate per route, all those things. He's just better as an interior receiver than an outside receiver, and that's hurt his production the back half of the year as well.
You said you don't think Kelsey's going to get 17 targets this week. Obviously, that's not a hot take, but like
through the defense, like there's just no way that the Bengals are going to let it happen.
Yeah, but like, is he going to get enough? So if you go back to his playoff starts, what is like last 7 or 8 player starts, every single one of them is awesome.
Yeah,
they're all fantasy relevant. With like these last 7, I think it was Levitan who tweeted it out, I want to say, but he's just been incredibly efficient and fabulous, and the floor has been amazing. Of course, you got to pay for him. And, we live in the world of a salary cap, and it's a big hit on your salary. How much are you willing to take that hit, John, as far as tight end with Kelsey? I know you talk about fading Goddard. Ideally, yeah, you want to have Kelsey in your team, but everybody else wants Kelsey. Is it worth the hit to the rest of your team, kind of is the question.
It's almost the same question as last week, and we talked about it. You had to. It made sense to pay up for him, knowing he was checking in around roughly less than 10%, just because of how tight last week was, with a lot of stars on the board. And it is tight this week, but at the same time, now in a shorter slate, we can just legitimately say, even if he has a normal week, like 5 for 70, I think we can get away with that and instead chase a touchdown or a high reception floor guy. And so right now, I'm looking at going underweight and not having much of him, and instead going to McCaffrey's receptions, trying to pay up for some expensive receivers instead. But honestly, it's another situation. You already mentioned it, where we think Travis Kelce in a 2-game slate is once again going to be at less than 10%. He may just be a construction, like literally just a pay up for tournaments kind of play.
Yeah, if it's going to be 10%, like there's no way I'm not going to be over on that. Like, I mean, even if it's like 15 or 20, I think that's still probably too low.
And that's why I mentioned being underweight on Goddard, because that's
on DraftKings he'll be higher than that, not FanDuel.
Yeah. It depends on where you're shopping.
He's 8.5 on FanDuel. That's rough.
That's more than last week, man. That's so tough. That's a quarterback price. That's Jalen Hurts price.
I mean, it's the same price as Jamar Chase.
And we're gonna get there. But yeah, it just really comes down to, for DraftKings. Yeah, like I mentioned, I don't know. I don't, even on DraftKings though, it's tough. It's really tough.
I mean, he has to do on FanDuel. He has to do what he did last week, right? Like that's how thin the margin is. Like he has to have 25 plus points,
or beat all the other tight ends by like 12 or something like that. It doesn't have to be 25 necessarily, right?
Basically, no other tight end can score a touchdown.
I mean, not even necessarily beat all the tight ends, but like he has to basically match. He not only needs like to either have 25 points, or he needs to match like one of those top receivers.
What if I told you this is not real? What if I told you he put up 12 points and every other tight end puts up 0? You know what I mean? Like, even though he puts up 12, it's not so much.
What if I tell you AJ Brown is 30?
Well, then you need AJ Brown first.
Yeah.
And don't even tell me the 0 points. Just tell me Travis Kelce has 12.
I just need to know
I chase anyone.
Kelce's points.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I set up a really unrealistic scenario, but and I think one of 150. I made 150. And this is on Wednesday and whatever. He's only in one lineup on FanDuel. That lineup, by the way, if you're curious what it looks like, I'll give it out on Wednesday. Don't play it. Mahomes, McKinnon, Sanders, Juju, Ayuk, Debo, Goddard, Kelsey. So double tight ends. It's not horrific, but okay.
I made a lineup with him too on DraftKings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. DraftKings, it probably sounds better, I'm guessing.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard on FanDuel, for sure. They make it real tough over there.
Steve can find a way.
You can do it. But he was the only money I made last week was the Saturday, because I played Kelsey and somehow Luckbox and Gainwell was in that lineup.
There you go.
The dumbest.
Nice.
That's these short slates, man. It's the dumbest shit sometimes.
The only money I made was the 4 game, because I had Kelsey and CeeDee Lamb. Like, I didn't even get the rest right, but that's all you needed.
Yeah, which again, that might be the play. You don't have to get everything right this week, because a lot of pieces there's only so many correct answers probably.
And all these Jags are definitely going to get a lot of ownership. We're gonna see people take pop shots on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We're gonna see the Justin Watsons of the world check in. Like, in a 2-game slate, everyone's going to play these guys.
is CEH like the floor? Is he 4K on DK? I haven't even looked, to be honest. Like how much work is he actually going to get?
I think he's more than that, because when I looked, like Kyle Juszczyk was the most usable player at 4K. It's pretty tough on DK if you're trying to fade down.
Yeah, running back. Well, the floor is 4.
And then remember, post bye, like they basically eliminated Clyde Edwards-Helaire anyways prior to his injury, and maybe they try to get something going in his first game back. We also know they're just perpetually bored inside the 10-yard line, so who knows what they're going to come up with. If he scored a touchdown, it wouldn't be too shocking, but that's really all you're going for here.
Rich, you gave a big speech on, not knowing which receiver to play. Which running back are we playing on Kansas City?
I mean, I still think you've got to take a shot on McKinnon between the two just because of the pass catching. But we know what we have in Pacheco, right? Like, the dude's a kick returner playing running back. Even his 38-yard run last week, he ran directly in the back of his offensive lineman, and it just bounced off. Like, the dude is like, he's crazy. Like, he drank 7 Jolt Colas, and you hand him the ball. Like, he's just like a wind-up toy, right? He's one of those race cars that you pull back and like it only goes straight. Like, that's what it is. That's like how he runs. It's like his running style. But we know what we have in him. Like, if he doesn't score a touchdown, he's got to be hyper efficient on the ground, or he's because he's not going to catch any passes. Like, he's just not really getting the football a lot. Like, he has more than 16 touches in one game this season. He's caught 2 or fewer passes in every game but one this year, and the highest 3. And the Bengals are awesome against the run. He did score a touchdown when these teams played earlier in the year. He had the 14 carries for 66 yards. It's kind of like where he lives, right? Like, how efficient can you be on those 12 to 14 carries? Can we get a touchdown out of you? We know what we have in you. McKinnon has shown to have the touchdown juice, and we knew his deal with the devil was going to finally come to an end. But the surprising thing is he didn't even catch a pass. Not only that he failed to catch a touchdown pass, he failed to catch a pass. The first time he didn't catch a pass.
Was there a target?
He did have one target, right? It was his
first
time. It was his first time since week 3 he didn't catch a pass. But we still also saw McKinnon is the foxhole back for the Chiefs, right? Especially when Mahomes had that injured leg. Who was in every snap after that? You've seen the pass pro, right? He stoned someone. Was it the one linebacker they signed from the Falcons? Like, he stoned him on a blitz pickup. He led the team in snaps between him and Pacheco. Only Christian McCaffrey matched him in snaps among running backs last week. And he's got that red zone equity. So if you're forcing me, I would still choose him. But I don't feel like the ceiling is high for either of these guys. But on a short slate, like, who has a high ceiling outside of McCaffrey and Mixon anyways? So, I mean, sure.
If we're thinking that Mahomes' injury is more severe than it actually is, are we assuming there's a correlation that McKinnon's more likely to stay in the block, and therefore, basically, if you're afraid of
that was true in the second half last week, and they were up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, again, and if Mahomes is fine, I guess McKinnon will run more patterns.
But they've also shown us, because the Chiefs pretty good real football team. Like, there's been no point outside of the Rams game where they've just lined up in the second half of games and said all right, Pacheco, it's your time to dust these guys off, right? Like, that's never it hasn't happened.
Yeah. Final take here on the Chiefs here, John. Did you want to give a thought as far as this running back situation? It's murky. Everything about KC is murky. 1 of 12 guys can score touchdowns.
Again, I just really don't foresee much rushing production from anyone, Joe Mixon included. And if that's the case, I'm just trying to chase receptions yet again in this slate, like we talked about last week. So saving the salary, or going up to Christian McCaffrey, or otherwise saving the salary, including on someone like McKinnon, I'm fine with that.
John, give me your Bengals take. Feel free to start wherever you want to start as far as Cincy.
Well, let's start with the offensive line. We talked about that last week, and yes, we didn't think it would factor much, which is what led us to Joe Mixon, P. Ryan. That was only Joe Mixon's only second 100-yard game all year long. I would guess we don't expect him to have that kind of rushing production again, as we've talked about throughout the show. But overall, Burrow the last month now, getting rid of the ball 2.3 seconds from snap to throw. When he held onto the ball longer last week, even then, he was great. He went 6 of 12 for 2 touchdowns and no interceptions on throws 10 yards downfield. You can spin the narrative, though, to say the Bills did not have Von Miller, no Micah Hyde, just completely banged up in the secondary. So what if Chris Jones and others, like a more viable front seven are able to get more pressure on Joe Burrow. At the same time, though, he's yet again getting rid of the ball so quickly that you can say, okay, well, unlike the Bills, the Chiefs still allow more production to running backs in the passing game. Chiefs are allowing second in receptions per game to running backs and ninth in receiving yards per game. We also know in the playoffs so far, P. Ryan has out-snapped Mixon 20-5 on third and fourth down. He's run more routes than Mixon in back-to-back games as well in the wild card and divisional rounds. So I honestly think it's just another situation where if you don't think Mixon's going to get the rushing production, you can just go back and pay for P. Ryan receptions again.
Jump in here, Rich. I feel like if I was hearing you earlier, like you seem pretty confident Burrow's going to throw multiple touchdowns. So, and you're getting a bit of a discount off of Hurts, off of Mahomes. Is Burrow your favorite quarterback this week? Unless I was listening wrong, or you think Mahomes going to throw for 4?
Yeah, he'll be the Fields too. He's going to be the highest rostered quarterback on the slate for sure. I feel pretty confident in that. Daigle brought up, being able to pressure Burrow. They pressured Burrow on just 22% of his dropbacks the first matchup. The only quarterback the Chiefs pressured at a lower rate this season was Tom Brady, and that was 17%. And it's been a problem for the Chiefs all year, whether they get home or not. No team is impacted by whether they pressure the quarterback more or not against the pass. When they have pressured the opposing quarterback, the Chiefs have allowed a 42% completion rate. That's sixth lowest in the league. They've allowed a league low 3.6 yards per pass attempt. When they haven't gotten pressure on the quarterback, they've allowed a league high 74.7% completion rate, 7.8 yards per pass attempt. That's 24th in the NFL, and a 5.5% touchdown rate. That's 30th in the NFL. These teams have played 3 times since last January. Everyone knows that. When the Chiefs have not pressured Joe Burrow in those games, and remember, they've only sacked him 6 times in these games, 1 each in the last 2. He's completed 75% of his passes, 9.1 yards per pass attempt, 7 passing touchdowns, 1 interception. The game this year, when the Chiefs didn't pressure him, he was 22 of 27, 9.2 yards per pass attempt, 2 touchdowns when they didn't pressure him. Tyler Boyd also dropped a 3rd touchdown in that game, which was horrendous. So, yeah, I mean, and another thing, too, that Burrow was in this game, he ran a season-high 11 times this matchup, and this has been common against the Chiefs. Since their week 8 bye, only the Lions have allowed more rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks than the Chiefs. They've allowed 5.5 rushing points per game to opposing quarterbacks of this span. Every quarterback has rushed for 15 or more yards against them, and all but 2 have rushed for 20 or more yards against them, including Burrow's 11 for 46 and a touchdown. So I think just Mahomes' injury is in the salary is going to get Burrow to be the highest roster quarterback. This game is going to have the most popularity anyways because the total. But yeah, I think he's and he's absolutely smashed these 3 matchups. Like compared to Mahomes, like he's got 2 30-point games and a 21-point game in these 3 matchups. He's been the ceiling play between these 2 quarterbacks.
Team totals wise, the closest team total on the slate, San Fran 22. The highest one is Cincinnati at 24.25. So it's pretty condensed in the total. 47.5 Cincy KC, 46.5 San Fran Philly. Question for you here, Rich, follow up, because KC, I assume they're aware of all those stats. The DC for KC, is he a stubborn dude or is he willing to adjust? What do you think he's going to do?
Spags does a lot of different things, but he's another one of these guys that he can't help himself. He likes to pressure the quarterback. He likes to try to dial up pressure, but you don't blitz Joe Burrow, man, because you ain't going to get there. Why blitz? And it's the same thing. Like they'll talk. Why blitz a guy that's getting rid of the ball in 2 seconds? What's the point, right? Like we live that thing with like end of the career Roethlisberger, although he wasn't any good, right? Like teams are just like, why the hell are we going to blitz this dude? Like, what's the point? It's the same thing with Brady, right? Like nobody blitzes because you're not going to get home.
But isn't that chicken and the egg? If you only send 3, like theoretically, wouldn't he hold the ball for another half a second?
Probably not, because it hasn't been the MO. Because here's the kicker. What the Bengals see was it's what pushed us their offense to run this way in the first place, right? Even when their offensive line is healthy, is they just see so much too high safety looks, right? And it's pushed them to run their offensive structure this way. Look at even Jamar Chase's depth of target, his yards per catch, his yards per reception versus rookie year. Like everything is condensed, right? Like they're getting rid of the football and they're relying on the short passing game. And they were doing this long before the offensive line got banged up.
Go ahead.
This for Jamar Chase goes back to the second half of last year, whenever teams started shutting him out downfield. Like then Brian Callahan was wise enough to start bringing Chase closer to the line of scrimmage because it's Jamar Chase. You still have to get him the ball. And that's what they've been doing since they brought him back from injury. Chase leads the Bengals in targets in every game since week 14. And his volume in that span, he's averaging 12 targets and a 31.5% target share. Like they're just jamming it to him no matter where he is on the field. So it's just a situation where whatever I think of Joe Burrow and the ceiling of this game, it's like I have to play Jamar Chase because I think he can lead the entire weekend in receptions with ease.
Jamar Chase or A.J. Brown, John?
Oh, God. It's still Jamar Chase because, again, I think the slate's ugly. And so I'm just going to take – I really think it's a floor slate. And so I'm just taking the floors here. But I'm still going to probably play both in every lineup.
Yeah, Rich, you said your favorite play in that first game was Brown. Brown versus Chase?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to go against a guy as talented as Chase getting as many targets as Chase, right? Like it's – I mean, he has, Daigle said, 31.5% of the team targets since he came back in week 13. He has 40.6% of team air yards. The next closest Bengals at 22.9%. He's been targeted on 28% of his routes. The next closest is at 20.6%. I mean, they are just feeding him. And then the spot, the Chiefs are 31st in the NFL in points allowed to opposing wide receiver 1 targets. No team has allowed more receiving touchdowns to opposing wide receiver 1s than the Chiefs this year at 16. And they've also allowed a 5.7% touchdown rate to all wide receivers, which is 31st in the league. He came back. His first game back was against the Chiefs from injured reserve, and he had 7 catches and 97 yards. Like, it's just objectively a great spot. They're funneling him with targets. He's really nuked the other guys, although I do kind of want to still play Tyler Boyd.
So Boyd is your favorite of the next group as far as Higgins, Boyd, Hurst, Irwin R. Shyster, Trent Irwin. Yeah.
Because we've talked about the Chiefs. We've talked about the Chiefs versus slot receivers all year. It happened again last week. Christian Kirk was the second highest scoring wide receiver on the slate last week. Boyd had 4 catches for 60 yards when these teams played in week 13. And he absolutely put down the easiest touchdown of his career in that game. You can find it if you didn't see it, but they ran like a nice little a slot fade, where Chase is running the slant from the outside and he's running the wheel. Absolutely bricked it. So I do like him the most. I'm prepared to lose more money on Tyler Boyd receiving yardage overs like I did last week when he had 23 yards on his first catch of the game, and his yardage total was still 31.5, and we lost. We lost money still. We're going back. We're prepared to lose more money.
Martingale, baby. Double down. John, your take as far as the rest of the receiving core? Obviously, Chase in kind of a tier of his own. Salary is a thing as well. Higgins, Boyd, Irwin. Irwin, I think, is in the 150 pool. I think if you might want to get a pinch of that to make stuff. He's got a chance. He's in the field, right? And then of course Hurst. Nothing sexy there. Probably the 4th of these 4 tight ends, but it's a pretty good tight end slate considering it's only 2 games. Pretty tight end strong.
And Irwin popped up for that 13-yard catch last week. But other than that, like Rich said, Jamar Chase has just gotten so much that he's pretty much nuked everyone. Like, I don't think Hayden Hurst has a ceiling. We talked about this last week, how the Bills hadn't allowed a receiving touchdown to tight ends all year, and so I didn't play Hayden Hurst, but we've now seen at least his floor is high. He has at least 5 targets in 3 consecutive games since he returned from injury in week 18, at least 4 catches in those 3 games as well. So at least we know, like, he's part of this dump-off scheme they're doing, quick-hitting scheme they keep on play calling. So we think at least, like, if no one else scores a touchdown, like if George Kittle doesn't score a touchdown, Dallas Goedert gets drowned out by the receivers by any chance, of course, Hayden Hurst can outscore them, and that's the real conversation since he's so cheap.
Oh, he's going to be right, but at 3K on DraftKings, he's going to be – people are just going to go straight to him. After if you're not playing Kelsey, they're just going to go straight to the 3K. Yeah,
or Goddard 4-1.
So we need Jody Fortson to be out so we can play Noah Gray.
All right, same questions as the first game, John. I'll start with you. The player, the stack that you're going to be you want to be well over the field on, you feel most confident about, the one player you absolutely want to have, or the one stack you absolutely want to have in your lineups in Cincinnati, Kansas City is who?
Well, the obvious answer is Jamar Chase, but I do think, given the structure of the slate, I keep on hinting at it over and over again. I like Samaj P. Ryan quite a bit. Tyler Boyd's also in my pool of wide receivers. For what Rich mentioned, plus the Chiefs being so susceptible to slot receivers in particular, yes, I'm willing to take a chance on Boyd too.
The fade that you're most willing to make, all things considered?
I think it's Travis Kelce, honestly. I know it's not pretty. It's not pretty, but gosh, how replicable is a 45.9% target share? I don't know, but I'm willing to find out.
Yeah, and your darts, you get to go first. You get to choose from like the Irwins and any Kansas City receiver is kind of a dart, basically. Is this the week Sky Moore finally gets there? Give me your random dart that you think is worth throwing into or being overweight on. You know, if you're running 150 times.
I'll go ahead and say Noah Gray. I'll just make it easy. Well, I don't know if Noah Gray ever makes it easy, but at least we know that, the Chiefs without McCole Hardman, and again, we may get McCole Hardman, so it may not even matter. But even last week, for instance, they went 12 personnel on 28% of their snaps, as they've been doing the last month since McCole Hardman and Jody Fortson were injured. We've seen Noah Gray's route participation increase in every game over the last month, including last week against the Jags. He reached a high in that span, 50% route participation. And, it only takes one catch here. So yeah, I'm willing to pay down, since we're not talking about Noah Gray outscoring Travis Kelce. We're talking about what can we get with that 5K on this slate. And I think that's pretty valuable on this slate.
All right, let's run back the same questions for Rich. Your favorite play, favorite stack, do you absolutely love? You want to make sure you're over the field on in Cincinnati, Kansas City.
I mean, listen, we're going to lose this Tyler Boyd money. prepared to lose it. Chiefs side, I would say McKinnon, I guess, is my favorite non-Kelce play. It's reluctant, though. I mean, I don't know what to tell you, man. There are some really smart people in the world. There are some great fortune tellers. I don't know. I don't know. Is it okay just to say I don't know sometimes? I don't know. I don't know who's going to score the damn touchdowns for the Chiefs, guys. I don't know.
I mean, as an expert, and I'm not even doing the air quotes if you're just listening, but you're supposed to know these, but I mean, you can give a best guess, but they're really just get.
I mean, even plucking away all the objective data that I could pluck away, I still don't know.
Yeah,
I still don't
know. If anybody says they do, they're lying, right? Anybody says this is 100% the guy, they're really confident.
I mean, someone might be privy to some information that I haven't uncovered that pushes them towards more conviction than I have. There's nothing wrong with that either, too. I'm not saying no one else has the answers either. I just don't know.
Biff Tannen might be able to tell you. That's about it. I don't know anybody else that knows, but
I don't know, man. But
most comfortable. I don't know if that's the best way to phrase that. Most comfortable fade player you're willing to fade, all things considered here. Again, you don't necessarily want to, but you might be forced into a predicament. Who is it here, Rich?
Yeah, I think it has to be Kelce, just based on the position he plays, the salary he carries, and then obviously, it being able to run back exactly the outcome he had last week. Like, that's as pure as you can get in that environment. So yeah, here we go again, man. We'll hold our nose and pray to the deities that Lou Anaru was not going to let him get 17 targets.
Bust out the magic 8-ball or whatever works for you. Give me your favorite dart in this game.
Oh, God.
I think Tyler Boyd was a pretty good dart.
I mean, yeah. Does he count? Yeah, if he counts, then I'll take him still.
And who wins? Who we see in the Super Bowl when we're in Nashville? Boy, shout out Dan Bach for making it happen, for bringing it back. And you guys were an integral part. You guys pushed for it. So thanks to y'all as well.
We complained. If that's the same as pushing, sure. We openly complained.
Like, a lot of people, I was looking at it like, I think the Bengals have a better all-around team than the Chiefs. And if you're factoring Mahomes' injury, but like, now that it feels like everyone's on the Bengals, like, I feel like collectively all of us, like, not being on Mahomes feels wrong. So I'm not comfortable at all. I'm not really comfortable at all. I like the Eagles to outright win in the NFC, though. Like, I do have conviction that I think the Eagles win.
I think I'm going to try to wager some real American dollars on Philadelphia -2.5. I think, it's midnight for Purdy, and I know Shanahan, and he puts his quarterbacks in great positions. It's a really, really tough spot to play, and we're in less than 3. We're basically saying they're the same team, essentially, and I like the Philly side. I think that they win this game by more than 3. But yeah, how about your thoughts here, John? Who we see in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think it's the Eagles and the Bengals. For DFS purposes, the Bengals are definitely getting steamed. But for betting wise, I don't know if I'm seeing that. I'm still seeing a lot of sharp people on the Chiefs, which makes me question my Bengals pick. But either way, I like the Eagles a lot. I've had them since the beginning of the week. And then, I think Chiefs Bengals, although a toss up, I'm still leaning Cincinnati.
Cincy,
I know for a fact there was a group that bet the Chiefs yesterday to push it back that knew that Mahomes was going to practice today.
Yeah. Are you in that Discord by chance? Or you have 2 degrees of separation.
Yeah. Listen. I do have some access to that kind of stuff. Those groups, the groups that are throwing around money that we can dream about betting.
The syndicates that we're never going to lead.
That will never be there. As I bet my Tyler Boyd over receiving
ladders.
Props at $200.
I think we're getting the Kelsey brothers a Super Bowl. That's what we're getting. Kansas City wins this game. Philadelphia wins this game.
For podcast purposes, I hope so.
Yeah. I haven't listened to their podcast, but I've heard like snippets of it on Twitter.
It's great.
It seems like a lot of fun. They seem like they always have a good personality. They seem like enjoyable guys. I heard him talking about the Zeke play like before the show today. It's kind of why Zeke was in my brain, I suppose. They were kind of clowning on it, but also just like, we respect Zeke. We're just having a good time. Mm-hmm. That seems like what's the name of that podcast? By chance?
New Heights, because they are from Cleveland Heights.
Oh, there you go. That's why you like them.
Those are my boys, man. Listen, I'm older than those guys. Our high school played Cleveland Heights, but I'm older than those fellows.
Isn't there a movie with like Shia LaBeouf with something Heights that's Cleveland centric or Ohio centric?
Yes, it is. I know what it's called too. Shit.
I don't
Shaker Heights. It's
Shaker Heights.
It's a Shaker Heights movie.
One like that Matt Damon like movie making contest that was on HBO.
Yep.
Yeah, many years ago. It's a good segue, by the way, into our little movie bit. Oh, we should tell the people, hey, we gave you over an hour on 2 games.
We are consistent, if anything. It could be 2 games or 13 games. We're going to be here for an hour and 20 every time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wanted to give the people, because, again, these are the thoughts you're going to have to talk about. When you're making these lineups, you have to consider Tyler Boyd and, all, the Quez Watkins players of the world just kind of make stuff happen. And you got to be a little bit different, especially if you're playing in that money maker. You can't just hit that optimize button. That's not going to work for sure. But do want to just, since we have a moment, thank everybody for listening. Yeah, appreciate the listeners. Thanks to you guys. Hribar, Daigle, fabulous as always. I'm always happy to be the 3rd smartest guy in the room. Appreciate you guys just doing the show and extending it this year too, being so flexible. Producer Steve, shout out to Producer Steve as well. Probably would forget this stuff in the show, so I wanted to make sure I get that out of the way. And also, thanks to Thrive. Thank you to Thrive for sponsoring the show as well. Kind of hit that like button if you guys are watching us on the old YouTube. Subscribe, turn on those notifications, do all those things. Hopefully, we will be back next season as well. Is there anything else as far as analysis here, Rich or John, or we're going to just segue seamlessly into our little movie conversation and tell the people goodbye that don't want to hear that? And, I think that's where we're at right now, right?
Listen, if you need any more, I wrote up all these games. You can go check them out at the website.
Well, tell the people what the website.
No, at the website. I mean, if they don't know now, I would say it's at sharpfootballanalysis.com. Check that out.
Yes, Rich Hribar, Sharp Football Analysis. Are you working?
I'm terrible promotion.
Yeah, and I should have just threw it in there as well. My bad. Did you put stuff out there for 4 for BetSperts this week?
No, I am done with the podcast. You can go to The Most Accurate Podcast is what it's called, where I talk about the games there. But written content, I am officially done until the postseason, the day after the Super Bowl. We'll be back.
Enjoy it. Enjoy your break.
Enjoy my 2-week break. That's not a break. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's bring in producer Steve. If you guys aren't aware, and again, if you don't want to hear this nonsense, by all means, this is just, we have a little bit of conversation about our movie bet. Producer Steve won the movie bet last week by a point, and he had us watch, we all watched The Menu, which is free on HBO Go, if you guys are not aware, or HBO Max. It's no RIP HBO Go. It's no longer a thing. I think it lasted about a year or so, whatever, same sort of deal. But Steve, are you with us? Are you joining us? Are you coming in? Do you want to talk about your fabulous lineup? And The Menu. I think you said you were angry about it after watching it, which I'm curious to hear your angry takes.
I was so frustrated with it. That's not how I thought it was going to end. And that's not like how I thought the movie was going to be going at all. It seemed like it was more funny than like scary. I thought it was supposed to be a little scary.
It's kind of a horror. I mean, I think more than anything, it's a satire, I would say. Is that fair to say? Would you guys agree on like a sort of a comedy satire? Or anybody? Feel free to chime in.
I didn't watch it.
Oh, what?
Oh, I thought you watched it.
I did it.
Satire, not comedy, right?
There's some comedic moments.
There were some comedic moments, and I felt like it just threw me off so much from what I was expecting.
I guess that makes sense if you were thinking, yes, more of a comedy, and then we get towards the ending and it starts getting a lot more serious. I really liked it. I know, as you've mentioned in the past, Dean, it's a very hit or miss film for a lot of people. Like they're not on the fence. They either hate it or love it. I just think it's so unique. Like I can't recall a movie I've seen like that kind of comes out of nowhere like that presents a theme like that as well. So that's why I enjoyed it so much. It's like, oh, this is an original idea. I enjoy this.
Rich, are you okay hearing spoilers? I don't want to spoil it for Rich. And like,
no,
I don't know if statute limitations are up. And this is a movie to go in cold on, I think.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
I mean, it's my fault. I didn't watch it.
Were you aware of the assignment, or you just
no? I did not know we were supposed to do. I mean, I thought he was picking a movie for this week.
Oh yeah, but there's no show next week for us to discuss it.
Oh, that's true. Good point. My bad.
maybe we should have said that part.
I guess he's giving me a series to watch since I'll have longer. Longer window.
What sucks the most about that is that you had a busy week too. Like you started Narcos, you went back and played Last of Us, so like you could have squeezed it in too.
Yeah, I probably could have. I even watched The Last of Us, the show, twice, this week's episode twice. So I get that in.
You could have fit it in. That's a damn shame.
I rewatched The Menu because I wanted to have it fresh in my mind. And so I have not watched Last of Us just yet, but I'm going to. I'm super excited. I saw the first episode. I loved it. I did not watch Under Siege like John did earlier this week. John's still living.
Under Siege 1 or 2?
I haven't seen number 2. I've only seen the first one.
All right.
What? Wait,
is it good?
How could you love Under Siege and never say, there's another one? Like it's not.
I didn't know there was a second like bad action movie. I just wanted the first bad action movie.
Yeah.
It's on a ship, I believe. The second one.
Yeah,
of course.
It's ship.
You have to, if you're Under Siege, you have to be on a ship, right?
It's not good. As ship sequels go, like Speed 2 was terrible and Under Siege terrible.
Oh yeah.
As a general rule, let's not have ships being an integral part.
The real moral of the story is that I need to try watching Everything Everywhere All at Once again. That's the takeaway.
Yeah. Do you want to try to sell it, Rich? I know you saw that. We were talking about this in DMs. Now we're getting off the rails, but it's a huge Oscar movie. The critics loved it. Even the audience was a pretty big score on Rotten Tomatoes as well. And I'm kind of a contrarian where I didn't hate it, and I respected how ambitious it was, and it took some really big chances. It was kind of Matrix-like, but it was also super original in some spots as well. But I didn't love it. Again, I didn't hate it. But it sounded like you loved it.
Yeah, I did. I think the fact that obviously one of the core themes of that movie is legacy and parenthood and how you project your life into your child. So the fact that two guys without children didn't resonate with it definitely is not shocking either. But I'm also one of those people that takes no offense to if someone doesn't like a piece of media that I enjoyed either. So if you didn't like it, you didn't like it, man. Like it doesn't hurt. It doesn't make me like it less because you guys didn't like it.
Yeah.
That's not my opinion. I need to go back and rewatch it.
And I'm definitely not one of those people like on Twitter too. That's like that. Like if you're like, I didn't like this, like I'm going to be in your replies and be like, what's wrong with you? Like, not everyone likes everything, man. Who knew this stuff is subjective?
But there's some movies where it's like, come on, how do you not like this? There's a couple. But you don't have to love it, but you have to at least be like, yeah, it was at least fine. If somebody like hates Shawshank Redemption, which is just a universally beloved movie, so you start to question them a little bit, or is that just me? Maybe I'm just that's a me issue probably.
Probably.
When people used to have like DVD racks at their in their apartment like 20 years ago, I would judge you
just
so
judge
hard.
Based on what they got. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Or their CD collection. Like I don't know how to judge people anymore. Like because nobody displays their CD collection or their DVDs anymore, and I don't go to anybody's house anymore either. So it's a whole thing.
But
we
also. Well, go ahead, Rich.
No, I got nothing.
We also, now that we've experimented with this for a half of a year, we do know the chat suggested to bring it back next year, assuming we get that lovely email in August from Dan saying, are you back in? Where we make it a public contest next year. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and I feel like the audience is going to be like they might want to punish us, and we have to make
Well,
sure.
Daigle was already punishing us.
That's true.
Yes,
They're not going to make us rewatch Street Fighter.
no. But back to the menu, like I was talking about as far as how divisive it was. It reminded me of Uncut Gems, where I think very few people were like, "Yeah, that was fine." People either loved that movie or they hated that movie, and it got them all afraid. Whatever, just freaked them out. And that's kind of like you were uncomfortable watching it. The menu was awesome. The satire was fabulous. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to ruin it for Rich, but the pretentiousness characters, like the food critics and like foodies, and how it like kind of spoke about Instagram people and like taking a picture of everything. It takes a turn, that movie, but at the same time, I felt like Steve, I feel like there's really no other way to end that movie. I feel like the ending was kind of like you're kind of boxed in without giving anything too much away. You know what I mean? Like, what could they have done if not what they did? You know what I mean? And it all kind of led up to that. I say this all like in code, I think.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. They're trying to spoil it.
I just think like Everything Everywhere, like Parasite, just go into the menu with no idea. I think that's the best way to watch it. Just don't even look up what it's about.
Yeah. Oh, I love Parasite. That's for me one of the best movies in the last 5-10 years or so.
It's a good one.
Fabulous movie. It's worth reading. It's worth having to read. Or I guess if you're lucky enough, if you understand Korean. I have not understand Korean. That'd be cool if I did, but I don't. And Daigle, what was your official stance as far as the menu? I apologize. Were you on board? Yay, nay,
Yep.
Somewhere in the middle?
He was thumbs up.
I really liked it. Yeah, I thought it was original. I really liked it. I enjoyed it. I'd watch it again.
Yeah,
I'll watch it again before we come back on next September. How about that?
Yeah, it was one of those movies I was thinking about afterwards, and like the more I thought about it, the more I liked it. So, movies like they kind of stay with you. And, some of you just sort of forget. Like you watch Under Siege, you're never thinking about it ever again in your life.
That's your mistake.
There's that one scene though with the cake, though. You remember that scene?
He rips that dude's Adam's apple off. Like that's your mistake.
Dean just got bonked.
Rich, what's on your? You have something on your list, I'm sure, going into the off season. Well, what's in the queue that you're looking forward to watching besides the menu?
The menu, I don't know. There's actually, it's interesting because there's no like real hot video games coming out at this point. I think Spider-Man comes out in June, so we'll have to wait all the way to get Spider-Man 2. I already played God of War, so I mean we've got a nice little reprieve here. Me and my wife, prior to the season, she had never seen The Wire, and we watched the first 3 seasons of that. So we still have the last two to get to, and season 4 is the best anyways. So looking forward to that.
There you go. Yeah. I got to do a rewatch of The Wire. It's been like 15, 20 years or so. I don't know.
Still holds.
Season 2 was not good live the first time you watched it, but the rewatch, it is such a crucial season.
Yeah, season 5 is by far the worst season, and I say worst in air quotes. Like the worst season of The Wire is better than obviously a lot of good TV shows. But yeah, season 5 is my least favorite because of the McNulty storyline alone. Is just takes me out of that whole world.
On your list, Steve, anything in the queue? I think we're firing up for and now that football season's over, your time's opened up a little bit.
Oh, you know what I am going to do? Not to hijack Steve's thing. I've got this here. I've got this 4,000 piece Lego Spider-Man Daily Bugle to build.
That's
so we're going to jump on that at some point.
That's awesome.
Is that you do that? Is that for you, or is that with your child, or is that both of you?
What's that?
Is that you? It's your thing. It's your project.
Yeah, man. He's literally got a Horizon Lego built here. I got some other adult Lego because the people that make Legos now are all just my age now. Right?
Yeah,
like, they grew up with me. So like, it's the same people that like make cartoons and stuff. Like we joked about Spider-Verse and stuff. It's like all the people making content are my age now. They all got jobs and they're doing this stuff. So I'm in the demographic for this stuff.
It's a good point. Yeah.
No, that's cool.
Steve, I don't know if you had an answer or not, or John, if you have an answer, anything that's on the list. And Narcos, I guess, is what it is. I've never watched Narcos. I hear it's good. There's so much good stuff out there.
Go watch it, and then pivot to Narcos Mexico.
It's such a huge undertaking.
Rich is watching
5 seasons, right?
I gave up, I think, on the part of Narcos after the Pablo part.
What happens to him?
Is that Narcos Mexico?
Yes, Pablo afterwards is Narcos Mexico, but that's still great.
Yeah, I might go rewatch that then. I didn't like it at first, but I'll give it another try. I
Watch
have
Last
nothing
of
on my
Us.
list.
That's
I'm in
what
the
I can
middle
tell
of
you.
rewatching How I Met Your Mother.
That's a lot of that show does not hold.
It's all right.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah, it's still good. But you ain't like listen. Barney's character isn't
Oh.
allowed to be. He ain't allowed to be put on TV.
Yeah, not now. No.
I'm aware of the show, but I never. I've only watched it like when somebody else was watching it, that kind of thing. But
It's like some real life like Pepe Le Pew stuff, Dean. Like you can't bring Pepe Le Pew back.
That's kind of the vibe I got from the little bit the small sample size of How I Met Your Mother. I know there's a father version now on Netflix with Hilary Duff, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I saw this pop up.
Never seen it.
Things.
Yeah, it's all 90s show is back. I'm not watching any of that either.
I don't think I'm watching that either. But like, shout out to like the parents. They look exactly the same. Were they like cryogenically frozen or something like that? They have not changed. They look unless they made like enhance their age years ago, and they were ready for this. I watched the trailer and I'm like, they look exactly the same, basically. Like it's 20 years later, give or take. Good for them. But all right, we're getting out of here. We do appreciate y'all listening. John, unless you got anything else to say for the people?
That's about it. It seems bittersweet that this is coming to an end for 2022, but we made it through another year. It was officially at the beginning of this year, but this is now like the longest running crew of Pick Six, I believe, right, Rich? Considering all the handoffs.
Yeah, I think so. What was this? Is this our third or fourth year for you and me?
For me and you, it's 4. For Dean, I believe it's 3. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I did 3 with Silva and Crane. So, yeah.
That means Dan's got to bring us back. All we got to do is complain until it happens.
There you go. Rich, you're watching the menu. You're going to tell the people about the menu on Twitter, I assume? The people want to know.
I won't because I'll never share opinions like that on Twitter because what good does a tweet like that do you?
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. What are you talking about?
There is no upside in a tweet like that on Twitter. So I will refrain, but I do promise I will watch it. I will watch it this week. I'm going to see Daigle in person this weekend. I'll watch it before that, and I will tell him and relay to him what I thought about it.
All righty. That is Rich Hribar. Check his content out at Sharp Football Analysis. John Daigle, 4for4 Bet Spurts. Producer Steve, again, thanks everybody for supporting, listening to the show. Could not do it without y'all. And again, thank you to Thrive. On behalf of Rich and John and Steve and Jolt Cola and Street Fighter and the menu, we do appreciate y'all listening this season to the NFL Pick Six show here at RotoGrinders. Win something this week. Save some money for the Super Bowl. It's going to be a good time for sure. That's it. We're out of here. Thank you.